What is up, everybody? RLTK podcast. Jordan here, kicking it with my boy Chris. Chris, what is going on?
What's up, my G?
You drinking tea today, not coffee?
Bro, yeah, I had to. It hurts my heart, but I had to drink tea today. Woke up with a sore throat for some reason.
Pause.
But, yep, sipping on this tea. You know, drinking some trees, you know.
Hey, how about the Mavs, though?
Hey, how about them Mavs, bro?
Them boys looking nice.
Hey, yo, look, sometimes, bro, I'm telling you, all right, this is my little vent. This is my vent, all right? I've been watching Dallas struggle my whole life, bro. Not even just Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Cowboys, Dallas Stars, anything, even the Dallas Desperados. I don't know if you ever heard of that team, but it's another football team.
Indoor football?
Yeah, indoor football.
Bet.
I've been watching Dallas struggle my whole life. So when any part of Dallas thrives, my heart thrives. You know what I'm talking about? So with the Cowboys, them boys been struggling since day one. But these Mavs, man, they looking nice, man. They looking real nice.
Yeah, I'm ready, bro.
Looking real nice, polished.
I don't know about Houston though.
Looking
you know what I'm saying?
golden
Them
like
boys held that L. That's what I heard.
Ooh.
Speaking of Houston.
Ooh. That's a good intro.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It is not a good intro, bro. That's a typical intro.
Speaking of Houston, got my boy Sean Nelson all the way from the H.
Nah, bro.
What's good, my boy?
Like that. Fam.
How I gotta intro you, boss? I don't have no boss, bro.
I'm emailing your boss right now.
You bet you gonna email me.
Nah, he gonna email God a little bit. Man.
You gonna talk to the Lord real quick? I mean, yeah, he my boss. Lord, you gonna tell Dad? You gonna tell Dad on me? That's messed up, bro. Dad,
you need help, bro.
That's hilarious.
Hey, but for real though, super grateful for you being on the pod, bro. Appreciate you. Mad grateful for you. Grateful for your friendship, all the jokes, the times that we spend together. Grateful for you, bro. Grateful for your ministry as well. So anyways, this is Sean Nelson. Welcome. He's in Houston doing his thing for the Lord. So yeah, man, obviously I know who you are. Chris just met you, but obviously our listeners don't know who you are. So go ahead and share with us, man. Who are you? What do you do? What's your story?
Man, thank you for having me on, bro. Man, H-Town is coming up, bro. Texans, we're going to be better than
the Texans are going to be a problem next year, my boy. Problem
next year, bro. This is not a sports podcast, but it could turn into one real quick. But let me introduce myself, man. Chris, pleasure meeting you, big dog. My name is Sean Nelson.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. My name is Sean Nelson. I serve as a youth pastor here in Houston, Texas. But give you some backstory to who I am. Born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, D-Town, Motor City. We used to say we got gears for the cars and gangsters, bro. Like that was Detroit. It was a concrete jungle. Grew up in the heart of the city, man. 6 Mile Southfield, 313. I grew up in it. That's all I knew. I thought I'd never leave Detroit, man, because I'm a city boy at heart. We ain't had no trees, but we had trees, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Detroit, man. My parents, beautiful family, man. My parents, love my parents, still together to this day. Talk to them once a week, if not more. Grew up with my parents, man, watching my dad and my mom. They grew up in the church, and then my parents became pastors. Probably around when I was in early middle school, my parents launched their own ministry. And so I'm a church kid. I'm a PK through and through. I am testament that PKs are not the worst. Cap.
Yeah.
Stop the cap.
That's cap. Stop the cap.
Definitely got a story.
Yeah, God got a special anointing on PKs, bro. We need to do a podcast on just PKs, bro. For
Facts.
real. Like have PKs on.
I don't even
Um,
know that type of life. I can't imagine what that life is like. It's not. Would y'all say it's kind of like? Would y'all say it's the same as like LeBron and his son? You know what LeBron's son is going through
mm,
right now with all that
yeah, I
pressure.
think. Yep, I think it's kind of like that growing up when your parents are well known. There's a lot of
Mm,
expectations. There's a lot of folklore on like what they could look
mm,
like. And LeBron's home is just the most amazing home ever. And
yeah.
Bronny James and Bryce and the daughter, I can't remember her name, but they're all just
Mm,
caught up in it. Like, hey, I'm a real human. Like, I'm not my
yeah.
dad, and I'm an individual, and I don't
Mm.
know what to like, but I know I don't like being shot. Pastor Jeff and Sandra Nelson's son. I got to deal with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and so it was cool when I was younger, but as I grew up a little older, it got a little, there was some contention, as you can only imagine, of the faith and just things that we went
Mm,
through as a family, just
mm,
being pastors' kids. And sometimes you gotta wear a face when your heart is saying something different. You don't want, being raised in the church, you got God's blessings on you, God's light is shining on you, but yet there's some very dark moments in your life. And you don't want to let others think that God isn't good or real based on how
mm,
you feel. And so I carried a
yeah.
lot of that. Like I carried the gospel. I carried Christianity and based on making sure I looked like everything is okay. And
Yeah.
by the time I was 16, man, I was done with all that. I was done with pretending. I was done. I was just overwhelmed. I was exhausted as a teenager. I didn't have a lot of language like I do now. But I had a lot of suicidal thoughts, suicide ideation. As a teenager, I was really lost at a young age, man, and just going through things. And my parents were navigating life, navigating coming out of the '80s. I'm 43. I'll be 45 in 2 years. So I'm an '80s baby,
Black don't crack.
born in 1980. Black don't crack, big dog. It looks good. Thank you. Thank you. I get it from my mama and my daddy, and my big mamas and my grandmas. But I'm 43, and so I'm an '80s baby, man. So I navigated my parents coming out of that survival. My parents were in civil rights, but never really talked about it in the home. And it was all just God's gonna make a better way. And so you just had this dynamic, man, of
Yep.
like I'm a
Yep.
Christian, but yet there's this really
Yep.
broken, hard world. How do I deal with that? And so in
Yep.
the '80s, baby, coming up as a pastor's kid, grew up with some very tough stuff. Started dibbling, dabbling, smoking weed and partying, and just finding life in that. But I had enough sense to be like, I still need to be connected to church, but I'm gonna party when I need to party. And I just had some really good mentors at my youth group who discipled me well. I'll never forget these guys, Jimmy Z and Jimmy Nevels, man. They discipled me as a teenager. Um, I don't remember everything they said, but I remember some of the things they did. I'll never forget when Jimmy Nevels was this nerdy white dude, bro, and
Mm.
he would pick me and my brother up and just be like, "Y'all want to go to the arcade?" And I just remember days sitting in my house, like nothing to do, no money, no funny. I know they say in the hood, like, "Hey, get your money up, not your funny up." I ain't have neither one up. Like, I ain't have my funny. I ain't have my funny or my money up. Like, it was just dummy up. I had my dummy up. And
Yeah.
Jimmy Nevels would come and pick me and my brother up, bro. This nerdy white dude that in the hood, you never get caught around a dude like that. And he would just
Yeah.
pick us up and take us out of our environment, see some joy and some hope. So that started to get into me. And so then college years, graduated. College years, I went to Wayne State University, studied mechanical engineering. I was 2.5 years into that. I was in NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers. I'm like, bet I'm about to get this engineering degree. I'm about to go make this money. Had an uncle in California, like, man, I'm gonna move with him in San Jose, go chase women, go make money, and live a good life. Like I had made a decision early on, bro, that I was just gonna be a good moral citizen. I wasn't gonna pursue Christianity hard like my parents did. And I had made that decision at like 18, like, you know what? I think it's okay that I can start walking away from like this faith my parents expressed, like having people over the house, loving on
Mm.
people, not trying to sin, cuss, and all that type of stuff. Like that's for my parents. I'm gonna just be a good moral character and live my life that I want to live. And so that was kind of why I sat in college, and the Lord just kept pulling on me, like, hey, that might not be good for you, big dog. That might not be enough for your life. And so in college, I was looking for an internship actually, and I couldn't find one in Detroit of all places for engineering in the motor city capital of the world. I
That's
couldn't find
crazy.
an internship. I had met a dude who came to my church, an Asian cat named Milton Chin. Shout out to my homie Milton Chin. He came to Detroit. He did an internship at my church. He and I connected, and he and I became like best friends. And through Milton, it was one of the first time I'd ever seen a young guy. We was like 20, 21. Like I had never seen a young guy be this devoted to his faith. And I'm like, wait a minute. If he can do it at 20 and it's not weird, and he had on at that time,
That's
he was
good,
wearing
bro.
baggy jerseys. Remember the throwback jerseys?
Yeah.
Throwback. He was wearing throwback jerseys. He had diamond earrings in, hat to the back. But yet at 6 in the morning, my man's was reading Isaiah. And I'm like, hang tight, bro. Like, this is weird. What is this?
Yeah.
And so it was just authentic, man. And so I was like, all right, Lord, maybe there's a path for me, man. And so I'll never forget one summer, bro. I just stopped hanging out and I went through the Bible, bro. I read through the text. I read through Genesis and John. And that's when I really think I got saved at around 2021, came to know Christ and was like, all right, Lord, something got to be a little more deeper than just church attendance.
Yeah.
I needed some adventure. And what I just kind of surmised in my life was that I'll just say yes to God. How about I just say yes and stop trying to figure everything out and just say yes? And that's when I moved with Milton. I took a summer 2004, came to Houston, Texas. I was just trying to be here for a summer. I created my own kind of internship. And I was like, hey, man, I'm going to come out here for the summer with you, bro, and just volunteer at Star Hope Homeless Shelter. And he was like, come on, bro, come on. And that his come on was a little too easy. I was like, hey, why is it so easy, bro? And so I came down here, man, moved down here, and I did the volunteering for the summer. Then they asked me to do like this real intentional mission trip with some teens. And I was like, all right, I'll do that. I ain't got nothing else to do. So I took some teens to Colorado, and it actually was my interview to replace him. And they interviewed me and was like, hey, this was actually an interview. We think you do well working with these youth. Milton is leaving. Do you want the job? And I was like, yeah, I'll take it. And I took the job and moved to Houston with literally, I knew one person and one bag of luggage, and I got right into the heart of ministry in Houston, Texas, and Star Hope Homeless Shelter in Third Ward. I just was saturated in the area. Then God blessed me. I met my wife. I was at College of Biblical Studies studying biblical counseling. My wife was the apartment manager. I was looking for an apartment with a friend who was a student too, and my wife was the apartment manager. And you talk about the hookup. My wife was the apartment manager, man, and so I actually got to share the gospel with my wife right then and there in the leasing agency. She kind of looked at us and was like, "Hey, y'all, something different about y'all," and we were like, I don't know what it is, lady, that you see. She was like, y'all are just, I just got at a young age, I got a lot of joy. And so we kind of was like, all right, if you going to ask us, we going to tell you. And so we told her why we have so much joy, and she began crying. And we shared the gospel with her, and she gave her life to the Lord at the leasing office, bro. And
That's crazy.
That's nice.
It was euphoric, man. It was just kind of like, Lord, are you really doing this? And he's like, yes. Didn't you say yes 3 summers ago? This is what I do when you say yes. And so I met my wife. She had 3 kids before I met her. We got married 3 years later. We have a blended family. We have 2 kids. She had 3 kids before I met her. So we got 5 kids together. Then we adopted our oldest when he was about 15 into our home. So we got 6 kids. Been married for 15 years. Been together 19, which is crazy to say. We got 6 kids in there. Started ministry, youth pastor, been an adult discipleship pastor, connections pastor, family pastor. Now I get to be back in youth ministry, which I'm passionate about. Youth ministry keeps you young. So if anybody's looking for the fountain of youth, you got to be youth ministry. Went and got a degree in Christian leadership at Juliana King University, and I'm pursuing my master's right now in Christian leadership. And then I'll probably in about 2 years go for my doctorate and all that other stuff. But I'm gonna pause on that. I love to, as you can tell in my face, you've probably been looking like, what's wrong with him? Like, I love his story, but he looked like he needs a touch from the Lord right now. I bodybuild, so I got death face right now, what we call it in the bodybuilding world. And literally, Jordan, when I got on, he was like, "Bro, you look deceased." I was like, "Hey,
You look
deceased."
gone.
So I do bodybuilding, man. That keeps me alive. It keeps me moving. I got a show coming up in about 2 months, man. So I'm excited about that. And I love all things youth ministry, discipleship, and that's what we're gonna talk about today.
Yeah, that's dope, bro. I appreciate you catching us up.
Yeah.
Super. That's a crazy story, bro. It's cool to just hear how the Lord kind of like brought everything together. I know I've heard that story before, but obviously there was parts that you shared just now that I didn't know. So that's hella
It's
dope.
crazy, man.
But I think about your journey and like the response you had to God when you were younger, and then coming to Him when you were older. Like as you think about this generation right now, like what response are they having to God? As I think about your story, what do you think? What do you think the conversation is that they're having with God? Are they rejecting Him? How are they rejecting Him? Are they accepting Him? How are they accepting Him? Like, what do you think the dialogue of this generation is with God?
Yeah, I think because they have so many voices that we didn't have growing up as teenagers. Like I didn't have a
Mm,
lot of digital access and access to so many people who felt a certain type of way about God. I only had one
mm,
voice, which was my parents, and then going to school and teachers said the same thing my parents were saying. This generation, bro, are inundated with just prophets and pastors on all kinds of ends, and messages on all kinds of ends, and so they're struggling with what to believe and
mm,
who to listen to and who has ultimate authority in their lives
mm,
because they have access to so many things. Like one of my teenagers, bro, in my youth group, we were talking and she just started talking to me about this TikToker who is like a 15-year-old who's like on this rage of anti-religion, like,
mm,
or religious hurt. And it's all about religious trauma. And she's like, yeah, there's a whole reel and whole, you can watch just 50 minutes an hour of people with religious trauma, teenagers. And I'm
mm.
like, and the religious trauma, the same thing that happened with me, it came from people. It came from people in their lives. And I think that's where teenagers are struggling, is that they want to believe in God, but yet they have the people who say they believe in God give them the most trauma,
Mm.
bring them the most drama and trauma. And so they have a disconnect of like, man, this is who God says he is, but yet in my own home, I'm feeling a sense of unloving behavior and interaction. And so I don't think it's changed much from what you and I experience. It's the people. It's the people who say that I love God that are in their lives that cause them oftentimes to struggle the most. And secondly, I think it is the access that they have to so many different voices telling them what's real and what's not.
That's good, bro. I think about I'm thinking about this student at school in our city out here in Phoenix. And this particular student used to like be super like all about the gospel, like this, that, telling people, talking about it, reading, all these different types of things. And then like I saw this student a couple months ago and like they wouldn't even like look at me. And I was like, yo, that's hella weird. Like what happened? And then I found out like I think that particular student, their family is like in the process of being fractured by like a divorce or something.
Yeah.
And so it's like, to your point, right? Like these kids are like, okay, you raised me in this, like this is what I should believe, blah blah blah, so on and so forth. And then I'm taking it seriously, and then I look at your life, and you guys are making all these decisions, and then I'm like, nah, this can't be this can't be real, this can't be true.
Yeah. This can't be reality.
Mm.
And then I think too, like once again, like you're saying with all the voices, like there's just an incredible amount of confusion out there, and incredible amount of misinformation too. Like I mean, social media isn't there necessarily like you know doing away with all the misinformation concerning Christianity, concerning the faith, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and even in their doing away of certain misinformation, you could argue that that's even political in itself, you know.
Mm.
um
Facts.
and so
Facts.
when you think about that, yeah, it's like it's dangerous, bro, so
It's
dangerous.
very dangerous, man. It's
Mm,
very dangerous. And I think that is when you talk about an agenda, political agenda, or maybe even something bigger than that, somebody who has authority in this earth. His name is the S word, Satan. And
Yep.
I think that's a tactic of his, is to own the airwaves and then use people who are gullible. And I'm not talking about our teens that are gullible. I'm talking about the people who are inhumane. I think it's very inhumane and profane to get on a mic and spew things that you don't know about and that aren't truth.
Mm.
And that you do it for a platform, or you do it for, I think that should be a criminal offense. But the fact that we have freedom of speech in this country and we do all these things is that you can't sanction these conversations. You can't sanction these posts. You can't sanction a reel that somebody puts out there. And our teens, bro, the access they have to these things, man, are just insane, insane, man. And so you got people who are plaguing and preying on these ears and likes and follows, and teens love creativity. So the more creative you can be about how you get your message out, the more likely you are to get responses and followers. And a following is that creativity rules this generation. They love creativity. They love things that it can't sit and just be boring. Like,
Yep.
it can't just have a
That's
dry
true.
wall behind it. It has to have creativity. And I think that's a beautiful thing, that they love creativity. It's just that it gets perverted. It gets
Yep.
perverted in using creativity over, and that's just isn't that like the age old issue in humans? Is like we love creation and we love beauty, but we neglect the creator, and we neglect the truth that's behind creativity. And so our teens, I can't blame them for loving creativity and somebody who puts a message in a really eloquent way. It's just about how do we as a church help them navigate those spaces.
I think this makes discipleship even more important, right? Because I think, and I think this is the conundrum that churches, youth ministries, organizations now find themselves in, because we have to engage these more radical, extreme conversations and views now with gospel truth, right? Like, we can't stray away from engaging those issues, because those issues, it's not like we can just hide our kids under a rock. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it's pervasive now. It's everywhere, right? And so they're getting inundated with these perspectives. And then because we know that this generation understands the world more socially, right? So for them, it's like not just about what is actually true and where the source is, but it's more about, do my friends and all of their friends sign off on this? And if they do, then it's true, right? So because of all that, we like have to do a good job now of engaging these issues, which I think also means like we have to be culturally up to date to some degree, at least on the major things, right? And then be ready and willing to engage those things with gospel truth, which I think means for the youth worker, then like we have to be like learned. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to like be students of culture. We have to be students of the Bible. We have to be in prayer. Like we have to like we need like people around us who can speak into the things that we're creating, like in terms of content and resources, sermons, conversations, like, and like we have to engage the ugly, nasty, grimy stuff that's in our culture and say like,
Facts, bro.
no,
And I think,
this is how God has created and designed and ordered things and called us to live. And this isn't just like God saying, don't do this so you can't have fun. It's like, no, this is actually what will bring you the most joy and fulfillment and peace in your existence, man.
yeah, bro. I
I
think we're
think,
talking about.
um,
Go ahead, Chris.
I think one of the biggest things that really helps, because when I hear these conversations that the world is having, I think a lot of it can be broken down by not by answering it, but questioning it.
Mm.
I think questions is a unique thing that we have been given. And I think questions can solve a lot of things, right? I'm gonna misquote it, but it's somewhere in Proverbs where it talks about drawing out the answer, right? And I think a lot of times I think we forget sometimes as humans. We know how lawless we are, and we know how rebellious we are, right? And we also understand. I mean, it will never be told, but we inherently know. Like sometimes, man, I know this is not really the right thing, but
Yeah.
I'll do it anyway. But I think questions is a very big. I think questions is one of the main tools in the tool belt for Christianity. I mean, like if you think about the great thinkers of the world, one of the main reasons how they came to such profound thoughts is because of questions.
Questions. Facts.
And I think that if we can use that, I think that can break down a lot of these concepts that people perceive to be true, which it isn't. And so I like that's and it allows us to never really be intimidated. Like, cool, you think that's true? All right, explain that to me. What do you think that means? Right? What do you
Yeah.
think the origin of that means? Right? Do you think that actually can work? Like it's you get to break down the perceived design of that structure and you get to see the holes within it and you can have answers for that. And so I think sometimes it's just learning how to ask questions. Like I think a lot of reasons why we can't solve problems is because we don't know how to ask questions. Questions
Yeah.
bring profound answers. And I think
And
that,
questions, bro, often make people feel inadequate. Like if I ask a question, it'll look like I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that's actually a sign of weakness, a sign of strength.
yeah,
Is to actually
mhm,
ask questions.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I
because we
do.
don't. Yeah, and I think once again that comes down to like, what do we actually think discipleship is now, right? Like traditionally, us discipling people has looked like us going home, studying the Bible, and not saying we shouldn't do that, but then preparing something, coming, and then communicating that prepared thing
Mm,
to people, right? But that comes with a lot of presuppositions. It presupposes that they even have the framework to understand what it is that I am communicating to them,
right.
right?
Right.
So I've gone home and studied the text, and I'm assuming that they have the same worldview that I do. So they're going to understand the text in the way that I'm communicating it.
Yeah,
If they don't have the same worldview,
it's true.
they'll be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
exactly what we're dealing with. Like, we are in a post-Christian society, right? Like,
Very much so.
kids now are like, Jesus, Bible, what? What are you
What?
talking about? What is that?
Yeah.
Like, for
Man,
real.
my
You get
youth,
what I'm saying?
for real, bro. For real. I mean, I'm in it every Sunday. Every Sunday. So let me give you some context from me. I'm a youth pastor. We have Sunday service every Sunday except for third Sunday of the month. Third Sunday of the month is Family Sunday, where everybody's in one service together, designed to really get them to learn how to worship as an adult. You know, we got to unpack that in the next podcast. uh,
Worship as an
I
adult.
mean, worship as an adult, like there's a Jesus Junior, a Holy Spirit Junior, and a Holy Spirit Senior. Like,
I guess.
Mm,
I
Crazy.
guess, man. I was doing a coaching group last
mm,
night, man, and in one of my coaching sessions, I talk about how Jesus used teenagers early and often, and Old Testament is filled with teenagers making moves, like making major moves, bro. Like Joseph,
mm,
Genesis 37:2 says Joseph was 17 when he began getting prophecies, the prophecies of the Lord, like 17 years
mm,
old. Esther was about 14 years when she got married to the king of Persia. Like, she was a teenager, bro. Mary, we know Mary was she was a teenager. Like, these teens can be used by God. We got to create space for them to
mm,
develop that ability to know that one of the questions that teens ask is, can God use me now? And
mm,
so in my context, we come together every Sunday. I got about 120 youth coming a Sunday post pandemic. My church is a really large church in Houston, Texas. Shout out to Windsor Village church family, Pastor Suzette Caldwell, and our team. But we got youth, about 120 coming every Sunday. So I meet 3 Sundays a month. I'm with them for an hour and a half. And so We kind of do our best. We do worship, some games, interactive moments, and then message. And then sometimes we mix it in small groups. We separate the girls, boys, because people aren't coming into anything outside of Sunday post pandemic. And so my teens are just like, they're asking these same questions. Is this worthwhile? They're coming because that's what their families do and it's part of their family rhythm. But they're asking these questions like, Pastor Sean, is this even worth my time? Because when I leave here, the rest of the world doesn't look like Sunday morning at 9:30.
Mm.
This is very constructed. This is very planned. This is very scripted. You got 3 songs, offering, welcome, announcements. Pastor Sean gonna get up and preach. He's really animated and passionate. Then I'm gonna go home, and the rest of my world does not look like Sunday morning. And so, I think one of the things we're talking about, like how do we disciple teens? I think we can't get away from formative practices, things that form their faith. Things, I love Alpha. And Chris, while you were talking, it made me think of Alpha when you said you got to ask questions. And I think they say if you can ask 7 whys, if you can ask why 7 times, you'll get to the real answer. Like why? Why?
Yeah.
Why? Why do you bodybuild, Sean? Because I want to look good. Why? Because I'm getting older. Why? Because my family didn't really take care of itself, and I saw some of my family members love the external and not the internal. Why? Because I want to encourage people to be healthier. Why? Because I believe that if I sacrifice, other people will see me and be encouraged and inspired. I didn't found my why for bodybuilding, like why I really do it. And one of the things that I love about Alpha is a course where you can ask questions. And so at my church, we do confirmation class that leads into baptism, salvation, and then discipleship engagement. And so I just know a lot of churches, they don't have any formative practices, any formative settings to where you can sit in a room and go, hey, we want to let you ask questions about who God is. And not all this instruction and truth telling, but yet also truth embracing. And the way you embrace truth is you got to let people ask the questions from where they stand until they get to where they're trying to go. And so we don't give teens space. We want them to be Jesus Juniors and excellent right now. And it's like, I'm at 43 years old, still trying to figure some things out with the Lord, still walking with the Lord in all that I know and all that I do. And so I'm expecting a 13-year-old to be fully mature. That's what the Bible calls an exasperation. Like you will exasperate them and wear them out and overwhelm them if you expect these, like a tree, to provide so much shade when it's just a seedling. A tree ain't bearing no fruit when you just plant it. It takes time. And so those questions, man, the formative practice, I believe heavily. I'm a conservative guy. I'm like a spiritual mutt, man. I'm like a Baptist Pentecostal, bro. Like I've been in an Episcopal church. I was an adult discipleship pastor at an Episcopal church. I didn't even know how to spell Episcopal. But the Episcopal church discipled me, and it taught me like the deep formative formation and deep liturgy and the church calendar, Pentecost and Lent and Epiphany and the Advent, first Advent, second Advent, and the liturgy that's behind those things. It was beautiful and it was formative for me. I was resistant. I'll be honest with you, I was resistant, but it was very formative for me. And so I'm taking some of those things that I learned in the Episcopal church and applying it at my Methodist kind of not Baptist non-denom church, that these things you might not like them, but they're very formative. And I think teens, they actually want that. They don't know they want that, but they need it. But teens want structure. They want a game plan. Hey, we're going to start here. This is how you're going to feel. We're going to get here and this is how you'll be at the end of this. They want to see a game plan. They want to know where you taking me, man. Where are you taking me? And to me, that's discipleship. Is that you have a game plan and you're telling teens, hey, this is where I'm taking you. This is This is where I understand where you are as a teenager. It's going to get mucky and muddy, and you won't understand all of it. But if I can build trust with you, let you know who I am,
Mhm.
we gonna walk, and we're
Mm.
going somewhere. We're not just sitting. We gonna go do some stuff.
Yeah, that's dope, bro. I think about like it's all tied into what we're talking about. So I hear order, I hear like framework. Because here's the thing, like church calendar, right, was designed so that the church could live differently than the world, right? That's what the church calendar was designed for. So like you could engage and participate in all these practices and focus on these specific things at this point in time throughout the calendar as a counteraction, resistance to the culture and the things that it was focusing and participating in at that particular point in time, right? And so if you can create that for young people, like that discipleship structure, that framework, so to speak, and create order in their lives, and so that they can participate like in the kingdom of God as opposed to participating in the culture of our world, right? That's going to be what's incredibly formative for them. But that and that's what we're getting to. And that's what we're talking about in this conversation of discipleship. Like we have to have this framework. And I think we have to think about it as more than just like, yo, I'm going to turn up and I'm going to give you these passages and these 3 points. Or we're going to have this
It has to be,
conversation.
bro.
Or I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't sleep with your girlfriend. You shouldn't do drugs. You shouldn't, you know what I'm saying? Shouldn't do this and shouldn't do that. You shouldn't talk back to your mom. Yes, like you shouldn't do all those things. But I got to give you this larger framework for you to understand reality and why you're here and what you were designed for and why God created you and why our world is the way that it is and why there's brokenness and evil and sin and what God's going to do about that. And inside of that, like, okay, now here's your responsibility as you wait for the coming of Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Here's your responsibility as you are still here, not dead, and God has called you to build his kingdom. You know what I'm saying? And so I think like we have to paint also this larger, grander story for young people, because I think it's this right now, it's just very narrow. Hey, Jesus will forgive you
Do's
of
and
your
don'ts.
sins, so you get
Yeah.
to go to this place called heaven. You don't go to this place called hell. And then while in between, you're kind of just hanging out, waiting, like live your life. Don't do too many bad things. Make sure you tithe. Come to church 2 Sundays out of the month. You know what I'm saying? And you'll be straight. And it's like,
And you straight.
that's not
Yeah.
compelling, bro. And in a
It's
world
not.
where kids value creativity and like there are all these compelling narratives that they can be immersed in through their phones, like we're losing.
I
We're
think
losing.
I don't know. It's hard because how do I think Christianity is in an interesting spot because Christianity has the ability to literally actually pinpoint the problem of reality.
Correct.
And I think with Gen Z, and I talked about this on a few podcasts ago, is I think it's something about the form. There's something about image, right? It's something about that really is really the crux of existence for what I think of so far. It's like how I perceive my image is how I'm going to act, how I'm going to behave, how I'm going to think, what I'm going to believe, what I'm going to listen to, who I'm going to listen to, who my friends are going to be, who I'm going to marry. Like how
That's
I
good.
perceive myself, my image shapes a lot of my life. And it's very interesting. When Christ saves you, what is his instructions? To become like him, right? The man who is actually the moral standard, the highest ethical principle that you can think of, the one who is the light, right? He says to become like him. And it's something about that I think we have to discuss when it comes to discipleship, right? We have to be able to point out like all these attributes. Because I was thinking about this, man. It's like, why do I deny the things that I love as a human? Why do I want to forsake these things? And I can't. It's hard for me to sit here and to say, because we want to be acknowledged, seen, heard, loved. Those things are not actually inherently bad, right? But I think it's who does see you, who does hear you, who does acknowledge you, and who does recognize your actual existence. And I think that's why Christ has to be. That's why he has to be the former.
Yeah.
Because when he comes to you, he hears you, right? What he's saying in the scriptures, right? He's heard the cries of his people,
Hmm.
right? He sees you, right? He sees what you're going through, right? He knows what you're going through, right? He's been tempted with all the temptations and passed with flying colors, so he understands that. But he also understands that you need an image, because who are you without it? And and he understands that, so he gives you himself.
Hmm.
So these things we have to be able to teach the Gen Z. We have to be able to break these things down in the form of discipleship, because one of the biggest things they're having right now is identity crisis. The one thing that Christ can actually give you, the one thing you desire, the one thing that gives you, one of the things that gives you meaning, because this is, man, it's just, it goes deeper, because we also identify the things we find pleasure in. Christ is someone who is pleasurable to be around. When you recognize who he is, it brings pleasure. It's like, man, you make sense, Jesus. You
You make
actually make
sense, boy.
sense.
You
You know what I'm
teaching, bro.
saying?
And you make everything
Bro.
make
You
sense.
make everything make
And that's,
sense.
oh man, and that was actually, one of the questions you asked me is, how do we get people who are working with youth, what are the things that they can do to make disciples of teens? And Chris, bro, you making Jesus, this is the reason why I
He
want to
makes
be on your
sense, don't he?
platform. He makes sense, bro. He
he
makes
makes
sense, bro.
sense.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
he
C.S.
does.
Lewis's quote. I think it's C.S. Lewis who says that I believe in Christianity as I believe in the sun, not because I can see it, but by it, because of
See
the
everything
sun,
else.
I can see everything else.
Yeah.
And Jesus, that's when Jesus became real to me, when I was 20 something years old. And I was like, wait a minute, this dude is, Jesus is it. He is
Yeah.
reality. He isn't real. He's reality. Anything
Correct.
outside of Jesus is fake.
Yeah.
Anything outside of Jesus is fraud. It
Yeah.
is false, bro. Like, it is not real, man. And our
Mhm.
teens have to see Jesus. That is number
Yeah.
one. We got to stop with the gimmicks and the trends and the marketing and the brand and be you, do you, like, start your you need to start your business, but how is Christ being formed in you as you start a business?
Yeah,
And
man.
really, the formation process that I'm speaking to is for them to be just like the old saying, and Wesley would say, the Wesleyan question is like, how is Christ being formed in you?
Hmm.
How is Christ formed in you?
Yeah.
And it's about Jesus, man. It won't ever stop being about Jesus. My professor used to say, Christianity ain't going out of business. We ain't got to
Yeah.
keep selling the tickets and putting churches on discount. Put church and love and sacrifice. We don't have to put that in the clearance racks, dog. It ain't going nowhere,
Yeah.
because Jesus ain't going nowhere. And so we
It's true.
gotta preach Jesus, bro, in our youth groups and with teens, for them to hear who Jesus is. And I'm doing a series right now called Dare to Believe. Jesus makes the impossible possible. And I'm just, these teens these days, and a lot of it is probably the question that we're
That's
gonna go
crazy.
to is like going to like who are the people that's gonna help them see this? And we're gonna get to the parent conversation. But my teens right now, even if I'm honest with my own kids, they don't know the stories of Jesus. They don't know walking on the water and pool of Bethesda and the woman at the well and healing the ear when Peter cut it off and kissing Judas even though he was going to betray him, and Jesus flipping over tables, and John 1, where Jesus is in the beginning, and he is Genesis 1 and 1. Like, our teens don't know that Jesus. They know the Jesus of Sunday morning who's going to bless you if you do good. You know, like they know American Jesus. They don't know biblical Jesus. They know
That's
Western
good. They
Jesus.
know
They
American
don't know
Jesus.
biblical
That's good.
Jesus, bro. And so one of the things that we have to do is we got to get them to know the Bible and know biblical Jesus and let God do the work. And I think that's one of the things that I've seen a struggle with, is that we want to do the making and the making of a disciple and how they're it's just like, bro, just get with them, and the process is Jesus. He will do the transformation. And one of the things I've really kind of had to go on these deep dives, because I've been in spaces, I've been in suburban world and urban world. And in suburbia, it's kind of I won't say it's hard to make disciples, but why do I need Jesus when I got a 401k, I got a beach house, I got a second house, my parents have money, I'll never be without in this world. I need to follow Jesus. Why? And so, I just think that as we look at transformation, I had to go on a deep dive myself and like, okay, who needs to be making disciples, and can our discipleship? I had to do a deep dive about 6 years ago and go, is discipleship a real thing? Like, for real, I was an adult discipleship pastor, and it was just a struggle, man. And I'm like, I had actually resolved at one point to go, only pastors should make disciples, not members, because it's too hard for them. They got to work and they got so many things. And I started resolving that, okay, it's only for pastors. It's only for people who really know. And then I was like,
That's
this is
interesting.
too much for me. Like, I went on a deep dive. I started reading books. I went back to history, and I just went back to Jesus. And it was like, Jesus is like, no, I have all authority. Matthew 28:16, he says, I have all authority. And because I do, you can go and make disciples.
Yeah.
So it actually removes me of the adequacy of the power to make one. All I got to do is go, and he'll be doing the work. And this is how I know. Bodybuilding, right? I told you I do bodybuilding. I've been wanting to get into this for a minute. And I turned 40 at the height of the pandemic, which was terrible. My 40th birthday party was on a Zoom call with some cookies and my family. Like, you know, people turn up for the 40th, not me, bro. I was on a Zoom call like, hey, y'all, hey, happy 40th. I hope you got your mask on, and I hope you don't get COVID. And that was my point.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I really want to do a bodybuilding show. And I was lifting weights. I had been lifting for a long time. I played sports all my life. And I was like, man, I really want to do a bodybuilding show. But I knew I ain't cleaning up this diet. It's Texas, bro. Like, we got biscuits, we got briskets,
It's
and
true.
we
Fried
got
chicken,
fajitas and
ribs.
fried chicken. And it's Taco Tuesday every Saturday. Like, Taco Tuesday ain't just reserved for Tuesday. And my wife is Mexican. I don't think I shared that.
Man.
So we gonna eat some tortillas in this house, bro.
And you got enchiladas too. Then you got the tacos.
Look,
Man.
Chris is struggling over there.
Yeah, he hurt.
Man. Respect.
And so I could not clean up my diet, bro. Like, Chris, I could not clean up
Yeah,
my
you
diet.
can. You can.
I knew it was the diet, but I just,
You got to fast for
couldn't
6
do it
years.
for 6 years, bro. And so when we moved, we bought a house in another area. I got to this gym. I saw this guy. He was huge. And I just went up to him. And yeah, pause, big pause, no diddy. I went up to him and I was like, I went up to him, was like, hey man, you a bodybuilder? He was like, yeah, man, I'm IFBB pro. And that's the top of the line. And so me and him got to talking, and I was like, bro, I want to do a show. And he was like, you serious? He was like, man, not a lot of people want to do this because it's going to change the world. And I was like, bro, I'm dead serious. And he was like, I had a vacation with my wife, and he was like, hey man, go on vacation. When you get back, it's me and you. I went on vacation with my wife. We went to Vegas. I turned up. I ate everything in the world because I knew I was coming back. And I came back. He told me two things. He said, this is going to change your relationship to food. And the second thing is, if I'm going to talk and you're going to listen. And I did that, bro.
Boy,
I got
that
in the
don't work
gym.
with Gen Z today.
Hey, that don't work with Gen Z, bro. But
Oh
this is what
man. But
happened.
yeah.
I started to listen to him. He changed my relationship to food. I
Mm,
don't look at food as, I look at food as fuel now, not just for. I realized in that time food was a god for me. I was chasing food. Like I had a bad day, I'm eating the Snickers. Like
mm,
I have a, we get to the weekend and I'm bored, I'm gonna go eat because that
mm,
enjoyment that I should be seeking in Christ, I find in Chick-fil-A, like a number 5, extra fries, and this is
mm.
enjoyable for me. But
Double
to
it up.
God, double
Oh,
it up, big dog.
I probably just revealed that I have a problem. All right. We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later.
Hey, that boy just got revealed,
Just
just got
revealed.
exposed, bro. Hey, that
Double
boy got
up.
exposed. Hey, he was drooling. Hey, Jordan, he was drooling while I was
Bro,
talking.
facts.
Bruh.
I was over here speaking in tongues, bro.
Mm. All right.
Look at him. And so it did, bro. But what happened was I slowly started to T-word, transform. I started to cut weight. I holding muscle, the stuff I've been wanting to see. I started seeing it like, bro, I got abs. Like, what is this? Like, I ain't had an ab since I was 16. And what happened for me I started training people because people started coming up to me going, bro, wasn't you just big? And now you done lost weight and so I got into training people. What I found that was contagious, and I've worked in gyms before, what's contagious in the gym world is the same thing that's contagious in Christianity. Transformation. People want to know from being formed and constructed and ordered and you get all this formation in Christ. Are you being transformed? Are you different? And so
Good,
I
bro.
actually get people stop me all day in the gym because I was just for specifics. I started my prep this year, January 9th. I was 198 pounds. I'm now sitting this morning at 161. So you watch me literally do the whole I was 17 and now I'm 35 video. Like people in my gym have literally watched me transform. And I think that's what we got to be able to be patient with our teams, with Gen Z. Gen Z doesn't listen, but actually, if you sit with them and you give them the ministry of presence, they will.
That's good.
Yeah.
They'll walk with you. But we're too busy in this society. The people who should be making disciples it's not on the person who there is some onus on the person who needs to be discipled, but the real priority and the sacrifice and the sacrificial living is on the person who's going to make the disciple. You think about Jesus, the time he spent was very sacrificial. That I'm gonna be with these boys. Like, hey Peter, let me on your boat, big dog. If you let me on the boat, I'll show you a whole new world.
Yeah.
And all Peter had to do was go, yes, Lord, come on my boat.
Yes.
And Jesus did the rest. And so I think there's a mutual giving. I had to do that with my coach, that I'll be present. He's like, hey man, meet me at 1:00. We're gonna work out. You gonna do this. I'm gonna lift. I had to go, but he did a lot of the heavy lifting on teaching me. Now guess what I do with people and my clients? I'm now the discipler in the gym. They got to show up, and so do I. And I got a friend who uses this quote, and I love it. He says, collaboration increases the rate of change than the speed of change. And I think discipleship is a mutual relationship. It's not just, I'm going to do all the talking. It's, I'm gonna learn from you as well. As you share. I believe I can learn. I tell my teens all the time in my youth group, I can learn from y'all. I can learn life from y'all. To me, that welcomes them to become alive and to show more of themselves. And Chris, going back to what you talked about, identity, they start to see themselves different. When they live in a home that says speak when spoken to, or don't get out of line. I grew up in that. Don't get out of line. Don't get out of line often meant don't show your entire personality. Like if I want to crack a joke and I'm really just joking, but I'm showing off my personality, I can't, because you haven't welcomed me to be all of who I am.
Yeah.
And so in my youth group, I welcome their personalities. I tell them, I want to know who you. Don't hide in here. If you a cusser, you a singer, you a gossiper, and you talk about people, I want you to talk about people on Sunday morning. because I need to know you.
Yeah.
I want the real you. I don't want this, Pastor Sean, here's this image of me that I'm perceived. No. I want the real you.
Yeah.
So that we can work together in this mutual growth that we're going to do together. That I'm learning from my teens, man. I got a 13-year-old young lady who revealed to me she had same-sex attraction. And I'm just hearing about just her struggle. I didn't judge her. I'm just like, hey, tell me about that. You know, Jordan, you and I have talked about this extensively. Of like, okay, how does that conversation work? Where are they when they do that? And so just having those conversations, I've learned about all the misinformation about that and going, this girl isn't dead set that she's fully involved in same-sex attraction. She's struggling.
Yeah.
And I get to walk with her in that. And that to me is discipleship, that I'm walking with her in where she is right now, trying to take her to where Christ wants her to be. And will I get to see the fullness of that? Maybe so, maybe not. But I'm not in it to get all these results of going, look how many disciples I made. I'm in it to make disciples. And I'm either sometimes planting the seeds or watering seeds that have already been planted. So I know I said a lot, man, but it's just, as we're in this discipleship conversation, I think it's Jesus. It's people are attractive to things that transform bank accounts. Like, hey man, you making money off that crypto? Which one is that? Because I got money in crypto and I ain't made $1.
Facts.
When you tell somebody that so-and-so just dropped and you like, hey bro, I just sold and I made this much. Why? Is that attractive? Transformation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good, bro. I think about something that you were saying earlier that really struck me. I think about the discipleship process. I think part of being a disciple is making disciples. And so I think when you can get young people, no matter where they are at in their faith journey, to engage and actively participate, whether that be serving, whether that be worship, whether that be reading the scriptures at the beginning of service, whether that be like leading or guiding or engaging in some sort of way, participating and owning, sharing their faith. Like, because it was crazy transformative for me when I came to Christ, right? Like Christ radically, like, just destroyed my life, right? Just wrecked it. That's what he did. He scattered it. Every plan I had was gone immediately.
Gone, bro.
Disintegrated, bro.
That sounds like God.
But then when I saw somebody else have the same experience and they had it because I shared with them, that does something else to you. It's one thing to have it happen to you.
Yeah.
It's another thing when God uses you to do that in somebody else's life. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, bro.
And so
big time.
That changes you in a way, like it just changes you in a different type of way. And so like to your point, and to point to like who this generation actually is, I think this generation, like I know this guy, his name's Jonathan Garcia. He said this a while ago, like Gen Z is going to force the church to return to discipleship in the way that it actually is supposed to make disciples. Because these young people want to be on mission. They want something to be a part of. They want to participate.
They do.
They want it to be real and genuine. And they're willing to give their lives fully to a thing if that thing is legit. And so once again, if we can present the real Jesus to them, and not just like there's the scriptures, but then there's the experiences, and then there's the transformation that they see in our own lives, that's going to make it real and genuine. And then they have that experience themselves, and then they are now sharing that experience with others. There's just, I think, some incredible things can happen as a consequence of that.
Yeah, I like that. It's all right. Because it's tough, man. And even right now, right, it's how do I say this? Because discipleship is one of the tools to invest in the form of the image of Christ, right? It takes you, it's the form, and it's a tool. Because what is the point of discipleship? The point of discipleship is to invest in the image of Christ. It's to take them and let them see how to be transformed into this particular image that is righteous, glorious, good, and upright and upstanding. And why is it important to show them this? And I think because like before we knew Christ, we actively invested in darkness, invested in sin. We invested in destruction. We invested in those things. And sometimes we still struggle with that, right? We struggle with, because what does sin do? Sin actively tries to destroy the design that God has made. And we was caught up in all of that, right? In the destruction of design. And so discipleship is that doorway to help us and the next generation to invest in the original design. Like, does that make you get what I'm saying? And I think that is very important to explain, and because that's why it's important, right? And I think about that because that is something that I'm even coming to myself in the sense of, why should I deny this? Why should I give this up? Well, because Chris, you're participating in destruction. You're participating in it. You're voluntarily giving into destruction. This is why you have to give it up. You know what I'm saying? And so, and it's difficult because we also find pleasure in it, because we find pleasure in destruction. And so this is important why we have to disciple. This is important why we have to give these things up, even though it may make you angry, frustrated, jealous, it may give you all those emotions, but the end result is the result you need. And I think that to master that, to pursue that, and then call someone else to come with you in that, that is the goal, is to invest in goodness, invest in the proper right image. And I think that when you had the people that showed y'all what to do, they showed y'all how to invest in the original design, the design that God has originally made. And so that's why it's important, you know?
Yeah, it's good, bro. I think about,
Man.
and I want to ask you a question to wrap this up, Sean, but I think about, when we think about discipleship, I think a lot of times, like what is most important in discipleship? And I think what I'm convinced of, we're talking about this idea of form, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's ultimately what you do shapes you, right?
Yeah.
It's not just what you do, but it's what doing what you do does to you, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not just the act of doing something destructive, but it's what that destructive act does to you as you do it, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
it forms you.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about discipleship and this idea of forming,
Yeah.
and I think this is really important for this generation,
It's good.
because I think we pay attention to the wrong indicators. We pay attention to the fact that they're upset or angry about the things that we're saying or the things that we're encouraging them to do, or as they wrestle and struggle and try and do the right things, the turmoil or the emotional like things that might happen in them that are considered negative as a consequence. But what's actually most important is for them to go through that process, because once again, like you, I'm sure when you first started bodybuilding, right? Like, and you cut out all this food and you're lifting these weights, like you felt terrible. But once again, once you eventually started to transform, your perspective shifted. The way you saw those things was different. The way you saw food was different. Like all these relationships to all these things change. And you see the world in a different way. In a sense, like your worldview was reshaped. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like we have to
Yeah.
understand we're doing the same thing to these young people.
Yeah.
And so
Exact same
like
thing.
we have to like
Yeah.
tarry through all that nonsense and tarry with them through all that nonsense, helping them understand there's something grander and larger. Yeah, bro. Tarry. Something larger and grander, right? At work that's bigger than how they feel,
Yep.
how they think right now,
Yep.
like how they perceive like this relationship or this thing that they really, really want. And then on the other end of it, once they like their perspective is transformed through this slow, painful process, it's going to be worthwhile, right? And I think once again,
It hurts.
painting that larger, grander picture helps them with that hope, like we talked about earlier, the hope of marriage or whatever, right? Like it helps them stay the course as they hope for the things that we're communicating to them are possible. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
It's good.
last question for you. What advice would you give to parents or volunteers wanting to engage with this generation well?
I think the discipleship conversation is important to pinpoint the people who are making disciples, which are parents, and how do we support them. But I think some of the skills would be patience, having patience with your teen or a teen that your own child, and then a teen that you're discipling, is to have patience with them. Be present in the progress and the pain of discipleship. That there are some pain moments, just kind of like you said, changing the perspective. I remember moments when my coach, one of the things that allowed my coach to really be present with me and help me make changes were we did check-ins every day. And I would do photo, video check-ins and then meet with him in person. And then he could see, like, bro, what did you eat last night? And he's like, bro, you ate, I can see you drink, you pulled in water from somewhere. And he was present though in my entire journey. And he would tell me, like, hey man, people, this is hard. This is really hard. And I think I would encourage parents and teen and volunteers. Discipleship is also about a lot of grace with the teen that is growing and making challenges, because they're dying to themselves. As Chris was saying earlier, this is a death process. Discipleship is death. Like you're inviting them to literally go to somebody who's going to say, it's no longer you who lives, but I who live through you. That's a funeral. You're inviting your teen to a funeral every day. And what do we do at funerals? We're present. We weep at funeral. We weep with them and we joy and we celebrate. And so I just think it's very deep, but we're inviting our teens to a personal funeral, and they're watching themselves deny themselves. And so celebrate, be patient with them. Talk about your own struggles. That's one thing that sometimes we don't have, that transparency and that authentic exchange, is to talk about your own struggles, the things that you struggle with. It makes you human, and it builds trust. So that when you do challenge them, you got to be wise about, I wouldn't share everything because that's just not wise to do, but it's not lying. It's just, you want to have wisdom in how you share what you share. Share your own struggles. I think the Bible puts Saul, who murdered Christians, the Bible canonized that and put it in the text. Like, the dude was murdering Christians, and Jesus approaches him like, why are you killing the church? He's like, whoa, I didn't know the church was, why are you killing me? He's like, I wasn't killing you, I was killing these people. He's like, no, that's me.
That's crazy.
And so that
ain't
story, ain't that crazy, bro?
That's profound, bro. That's crazy. Yeah.
So he puts that in the text. This is in our Bible. Why? It's to go, I'm just like Saul. And so being honest about where we are, and I think have a game plan. If you're going to disciple your teen, every team, when my kids are on teams, and my daughter runs track, she plays basketball. My son is a basketball player here in his high school. They have a plan. Like right now, my son's got this huge tournament coming up in June where he's playing some of the top Duncanville. I know you know Duncanville, Chris, and some of these top teams in Texas, but they already have a game plan to get ready for this tournament. And this tournament is not till the end of June. So my son he's coming home talking about, Dad, they got us doing this drill, and they got us coming down and got me running the point. And I'm hearing him, and I'm like, my son is 17. He's just as goofy and intelligent as every other 17-year-old on this planet. But I see my son is attracted to this game plan his coach is laying out for him. And so it helps me be okay with the fact that I can give my son a spiritual, a biblical worldview shaping game plan. Like, hey, y'all, we want to talk about this. And yes, you were right, Chris. Gen Z sometimes doesn't want that. Because sometimes what they have learned to do is hit that skip button. Like, okay, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
You know, they hit the track button on Netflix or on YouTube, and they're like, let's get past all this talking.
Yeah.
And I've seen my son in conversations not want to listen, but you got to be wise about how you have these conversations in this game plan, and it's okay. It is okay.
Yeah.
And then parents and volunteers, I just want to encourage y'all. They may not like you. You know what I'm saying? Like they might not like these moments, and you might not be the most appealing, the most fun person. And I tell my teens all the time, like, I know y'all don't like me sometimes, and I'm actually okay with that because my wife loves me, and Jesus does too. I'm not in this job to be liked. More than likely, I'm not going to be liked if I'm spitting facts. Because oftentimes I don't like my coach. And, you know, he's like, bro, you look, you this is where you're at, and in month 2, like, bro, what are you doing? Kick it up a notch. Let's go. And I'm like, dang, I didn't want to hear that, but I needed to. And so my coach isn't worried about me liking him. He's not. He wants to see me win on stage. And I think you gotta be okay, parents. We got to stop trying to be friends with our kids. Like, I struggle with that too. I struggle with that. Like, I want my kids to like me. I want us to have a good time. But I've learned that my kids, when I lay down the law and we got to have some hard conversations, it happens in that moment. And in a day or two, things get back to normal. And I think some parents avoid the hard conversations because they don't want to lose their kid. You are, in fact, losing your kid if you avoid hard conversations.
That's good.
You are losing them. So step into those hard conversations. Trust the Holy Spirit. I pray sometimes for the words. I pray for empathy. Have empathy for your child. Know that Jesus wants to shape them, and you're part of the tools that He will use to shape them.
That's good, bro. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, man, it was good, man.
Glad to have you on the pod, bro. This is dope. We'll have to do it again.
Facts.
Yeah, man. Hey, thank y'all. Man.
Discipleship Part 2 coming up.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
Well, as we always say, this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end.
Yes, sir.
Questions, comments, concerns, you know where to find us. We always want to chop it up and continue to figure out and discern how to reach this next generation. So we love you guys, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Yes.